The money pit meets under the Tuscan sun. The inside of the house got so smoky. Too many notes, as they say in Amadeus. When she smiles, you can't help but root for her. When you pair two people that haven't worked together, that's always a little concern. You're like, I hope we sell it on camera.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Heart in Motion podcast. I'm thrilled today to be joined by Alexandre Coscas, who has an upcoming movie this week on Hallmark. You may know it as Villa Amore. Welcome, Alexandre, to the podcast.
Hi, thank you, Stephanie. Thank you.
So excited to talk about the movie and to talk about a couple of your other projects. This is going to be great.
I'm excited to be here. I love talking about stories that we tell, me and my partners. So very excited. Villa Amore is a special one too, because I actually proposed to my girlfriend on that one behind the scenes.
That one will always hold a special place, won't
Yes,
it?
it will. Yes, it will. So that one will be will always be a special one.
That's pretty exciting. So let's talk a little bit about how you got into producing. I know that you've done quite a bit of writing in the past. So can you talk about that experience and then what kind of moved you into the role of producing full time?
Yeah, I started writing. I was an English creative writing major, and I was writing even prior to college, scripts, and I wrote a book, a graphic novel, um, and a bunch of scripts with sometimes with a writing partner, a lot of times with a writing partner, and then eventually though those don't really. It was hard to make that work financially, or at least I didn't hit what I wanted to hit. So then it was much easier for me to work and produce on and work on multiple projects than write multiple projects simultaneously, because I'm producing, you're always at different phases. You
Yeah.
could be in prep or development or post or just production, just a lot of different things. So I found it easier to do that, or it suited what I was doing. And the person who inspired me, funny enough, to get into the movie business was a producer. So it eventually kind of worked itself out. When I was 15, 16, I was very much inspired by Jerry Bruckheimer movies. That's where I
Nice.
got the bug, watching his
Yeah.
big budget, roller coasters of a movie. And so it kind of worked out. And producer inspired me. I started writing and went back to, you know, to producing.
So, scrolling your IMDb, a lot of fans that follow this podcast also follow When Calls the Heart. And I know you were an executive producer in season one. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
So I worked for a producer named Avi Lerner first. He's an big independent producer, and a buddy of his was Brad Crevoy. And I'd always see him in the office, and then eventually I transitioned out of working for Avi Lerner, and I went to go work for Brad Crevoy, who's done all kinds
Oh, yeah.
of Hallmark, all kinds of everything, right? Very good producer, very prolific. And it's when I was working for Brad that I started getting into the TV movie business and Hallmark and Lifetime. I didn't know much about it then because my old boss only did independent movies. And of course, Brad was working on, he had made the movie for When Calls the Heart. There was a movie first, and he had been working on that, and it was kind of messy because there was like some of it was shot years before, and then they did it. It was a very hodgepodge thing, and they put it together. It did really well, and I think then Hallmark ordered One Calls the Heart. I think so a year plus later
Mhm.
of the series, and it was with Brian Bird and blanking on the name.
Michael Landon Jr.
Michael Landon Jr. Yes.
I just interviewed him, so his name is fresh in my
Yeah,
mind.
for sure. So then they were Michael Landon was had that book for a very long time, partnered with Brad, and I just helped on the first season because I was a VP in Brad's company, and I oversaw production and development at the time, and so that was part of my job. I'm not going to take credit for finding it. That was Brad, and it was just in the process, and I kind of gave notes and feedback on scripts and different cuts of different episodes in that first year. That's about. I don't want to overinflate what I did, but I was there when it started, and it was all Brad, Brian, and Michael that pushed that kind of Herculean effort to get that going.
That's cool. Well, it's always with it, getting ready to film its 13th season. It's always cool to hear about these little moments in that longevity and those different people that played a part in it. So,
Well, yeah, and back then, because the foreign market liked buying TV movies better than a Hallmark series,
mm,
we would always film the episodes. Times change now, but I'm just so you find this
yeah,
funny. We
yeah.
would always film one episode one and two together, and they would be released as episode one, two, and then three and four. But and then we would film extra scenes to bridge one and two together and other stuff to make it a movie. So
No,
one and two was always sold internationally as a 2 hour movie. Three and four was sold as a 2 hour movie. Five and six, same thing, and so on, because that was a better sales strategy 13 years ago than it was. And today, since it's such a popular series, I don't know what the sales strategy is, but I have to imagine it's just sold as a series now, you know?
that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So, as a producer, you're talking about sales strategy and all this. And oftentimes, as fans, we see the word producer, and I think it covers a lot of things. So, can
Yeah.
you help kind of clear that up a little bit for us? What are some of the jobs that a producer does?
Yeah, there's a lot of different producer can entail a lot of things. I mean, there are producing managers who are managers to actors and they just kind of bring an act, they help you lock in an actor to a project and they just get a producer credit. There's all kinds of different, or somebody just brings money or varying different ways, you know.
Mhm.
What I do and my business partner, we kind of do it all. We look for ideas, scripts, books, like where it all starts, the good
Mhm.
story. So we try to find a story, whether it's already written or is the seed of a story. We develop it into a more fleshed out story. We sell it to either like a Hallmark, a Lifetime, a Netflix, CBS, in all the places that buy, and then continue to develop the story until it gets greenlit, then to production. Then we're a part of the whole process of creatively, physically producing the movie, hiring the director, all the eight head of departments like the costume designer, the director of photography, and everything, so on and so on. We pick locations, we go visit everything. Granted, the network usually has approval over this stuff, so you just kind of work with them to get all
Yeah.
that. And then you have to do post, and you go through the music process and you give notes on like the music and the VFX and all of it. Like you do the whole thing. And then at the end when it's done, me, which is also unique with our company, we also do all the foreign sales. Like we not me directly, but I have a company that goes out and takes our project and sells it to France, to Spain, to Portugal, to Australia, to New Zealand, to Latin America, to parts of Africa, and territory by territory. And so I encompass a lot of the different aspects of
Yeah.
producing, because sometimes somebody who has a sales company who comes in at the very end, if you sign a sales agreement with them, they may want a producer credit also. So there's like all kinds of different
Oh,
ways
yeah.
to get
Yeah.
that credit. I think that they're all valid in their own way, but I do feel like my partner and I, we do from the very inception to the very end. We also even finance it. We'll take a loan against the tax credit in whatever
Hmm.
country we're in to finance the movie, and so we do everything. I know that's a little bit all encompassing, but we're
No.
that kind of producers.
Okay. So, what is something, and that's a lot of things, what is something that really excites you about your role?
So there's always that initial jolt of adrenaline when you sell a project to a network. It's not, you don't even make any money at that point. It's just the
Okay.
excitement that you developed something with a writer and then or you sell a book, and then the
Yeah.
author. So what I really love doing is calling the writer or the book author and saying,
Uh-huh.
"Hey, guess what?
Yeah.
We sold it." And then that's a very exciting moment. It's very early in the process, but that's a very
Uh-huh.
exciting moment. And I think actually that's a very minute, small moment. I think as a whole, it's just seeing the project being built. I think
Mm.
you see the idea, that's one
Mhm.
layer. Then you see the
Mhm.
finished script, another layer. then you see the locations and you see the director and the vision, and then you get the actors, and then you see the scenes being shot, and then you see it put together, and then you lay in the music, and it's funny how every little step builds it and it changes something. Like even the movie without music is so different than the
Oh
movie
yeah.
with music. So it's just the all the steps along the way. It's always fun to see something come from nothing into
Hmm.
to something, and it almost feels like a magic trick.
Yeah.
You know,
That's,
like
I imagine, yeah.
yeah,
That's pretty amazing.
yeah.
So
So
let's talk about Villa Amore then. How did Villa Amore come about? What was that, initial spark behind the story?
well, so I was filming. I was filming a movie in Ireland with Claire, the director of Villa Amore, about 4.5 years ago during COVID.
Okay.
And we were filming this movie with Joanna Garcia Swisher. She was
As
the
luck would
lead.
have it,
Yes, as
a
luck would have
great
it. Yes.
one. A
Uh-huh.
great one.
That's one of my favorite movies, actually. So
It's one of my favorites as well.
it doesn't feel like all the other Hallmark movies, not that they're bad, it just feels a
Yeah.
little bit apart.
Yeah.
And Joanna and I, we just kept saying we wanted to work together again, and I, during COVID, you just started seeing all these news articles about buy a €1 villa in Italy. It started in Italy. Then you could see them. They popped up a little bit in a lot of towns, and they're popping up again now because they want people to kind of repopulate these downtrodden little towns, throughout these bigger countries. And I said, "Oh, that's a fun idea for a movie." If like woman, I was inspired by like Money Pit. That
Oh
ages
yeah.
completely. But I said,
I got you.
yeah. I said, "Oh, the Money Pit meets Under the Tuscan Sun with the $1 villa idea. That's perfect." And so I was looking into all these, and then she falls in love with the handyman, or the guy who helps her build it up. And and I was looking, and there's all these rules and regulations that each different government and town has for these. Some of them say, you can't leave for a certain amount of time. You have to start renovations. Some of them say you have to start a business. Some of them say you have to put in a certain amount of money. They're not just like, here's a house for €1. There's
Yeah.
all these strings attached, and I think that's where we thought we could have fun with it. I don't know if we exploited it as much as I would have liked, but that was where the original idea. And it's funny, the original idea was our lead Liara was engaged to this guy that leaves her right before marriage, but not for the reasons in the movie. Now, it was because he fell in love with another man.
And that changed.
And that changed because and that's not to say that we thought you needed a very large life change to
Mm.
jolt somebody into just turning their life upside down. And we
Hmm.
said, well, that's a big thing that would
Yeah.
make somebody question everything. So that was the reason why we had originally conceived it that way. It was hard. It wasn't working very well though, and it changed because for the story, it wasn't doing what we wanted it to do. So it changed, and I think it works very well now. But that was the original. That was the original, like, push over the cliff for our lead to make that big life change.
So when you sell a movie to a network like Hallmark, how much, and maybe it's, contract to contract, but how much of that creative vision do you still retain after you've got the green light from a network?
I think that's subjective. I think if there are scripts that I found that were not written for Hallmark,
Got it.
and I just thought there was a really good seed of an idea that you could totally redo and
Yeah.
just keep that idea. And in fact, I just sold a Christmas one with that. I found a script like, we'll never be able to do this. It's not a Hallmark movie, but I think it's a great seed. And the executive agreed with me, and we sold it. So in that case, I'm looking to rebuild it from scratch for them. And then there are
Okay.
some times when you develop something, from the ground up with them in mind, then the vision is pretty intact. You're like, it's going to be pretty much this because I developed it for them. So I
Yeah.
think it just depends on where you find the project and at what stage and when you present it and sell it to a place like Hallmark.
Got it.
I think so.
So you decide that you're going to Italy. This is going to be written in Italy. True? Or is that true?
I conceived of it as Italy. Then
Okay.
there is a draft of this script where it took place in Spain because we moved it to Spain,
Uh-huh.
and then it went back to Italy. So
Okay.
kind of, yes, it started in Italy, rewritten for Spain, then rewritten back for Italy. Yes.
So you did the initial research to come up with the idea, but once you decide it's going to be in Italy and you've got the idea, who is responsible for then doing that extensive research as to how we're going to make this sound and feel correct that it's in Italy? Is that up to the writer?
But the writer and the producer, I think we both, everybody a little bit that's involved. But usually at those early stages, the people involved are the writer, producer, network. There's not many, like, we don't have an actor yet. We don't have a director. So it's not a lot of people giving their input at first when it's so early stages.
Got it.
But then when we go to Italy, it's also then you have the help of like the DP, the production designer, the costume designer. They also then give input on what do women dress like at this time here in this little town? What are the custom? What should this look like? The production designer will tell us, so it is a communal effort eventually when you get to those different stages.
And that's because your crew is they're Italians. They
Yeah, they
okay.
were all Italian except the only person we brought in were the producers and director. Everyone else was Italian. Even the local Italian producer.
So you find out that Eloise Mumford and Kevin McGarry are going to be playing Liara and Leo. What do you think made each of them right for their characters?
Well, I think Eloise has this very, you feel a lot of she's got a great smile. Like I think you just fall in love with her right when she smiles, you can't help but root for her. So when she's sad, you're sad. When she's
Mhm.
happy, you're happy. She has a very her strength is she does make you feel what she's feeling, right? I think that just comes across in her face, and she's really good at doing the emotions. And Kevin was a good looking guy and is very good at like being the rock, and I
Mhm.
think that was the balance in that dynamic. She was coming from a place of emotional instability because her whole life was turned upside down. So she was more on a roller coaster, and then she meets this guy that kind of settles her life in
Mhm.
a weird roundabout way, but that was his job was to be a rock, and he was very good at that too. Not a rock in like, just a
Yeah.
metaphorical rock.
Yeah. It's funny because on When Calls the Heart, Nathan Grant is the character that he plays, and oftentimes this last season, Nathan was described as the Rock. So Kevin's
Oh,
had
that's
good
interesting. I
practice.
did not know that, but
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I
and
mean,
he's
he's a very likable guy, like in real life, and comes across that way on camera and in his acting. Like he also kind of pulls you into his world, and I think
mhm,
that's a strength. And I think when you're that they had great chemistry, or
mhm,
they in this movie they have. I guess no one's
mhm.
seen it yet. I've seen it. They have yes.
Yeah.
So they have great chemistry, and I think that's always something that always nervous about in a movie because you don't know unless you pair people that have, we worked with like Nikki DeLoach and Andrew Walker, right?
And yeah,
I know they have good chemistry. I'm not
yeah,
worried about that. But when you pair two people that haven't worked together, that's always a little concern. You're like, I hope we sell it on camera
yeah,
that they
yeah.
they fall in love. So that's always a concern. But it worked. It worked really well.
Were you there for filming early on?
Yeah, I was there. No, I was there. I was there the last 2 weeks of filming. I didn't
Got
go to
it.
prep. Granted, you get to see everything from a
Yeah.
distance in prep. You see the locations. We have weekly meetings, and bi-week, even twice a week, we meet so that me or my producing partner can see what's going on. And, so my producing partner went early on. I went the last 2 weeks.
Got it.
And yeah, it was good.
So did you hear early on the chemistry is going to be good? We've got it. We're golden.
No, I don't think so. Because you kind of wait to see. I think there's moments where you see it, but you don't really see it until you see all these scenes cut together.
Got it.
And then you can kind of have a better idea of chemistry, I think.
Got
And
it.
then I will say this, music also very much helps chemistry. And I
Yeah.
do think that I know it's a little bit of spoon feeding, but I do think the music should tell you what you should be feeling in
Oh
that
yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
So that
That's part
helps.
of it. That's
Yeah,
part
it's
of
part
it.
of
Yeah.
100%.
And like you said earlier, the music can totally change the vibe of a scene. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we watch all of the parts coming together.
Yeah.
So there's another character, Bocce the donkey.
Yes.
Can you
Who was
talk?
who was originally a goat in the script.
How did we get from a goat to a donkey? Do you know how that happened?
Yeah, Netflix had a movie come out before ours. Ours was in development first, but had a movie come out
Mm.
before ours called La Dolce Villa, which was the title of our movie before it came out. And there was a goat
Yes.
in their movie, and we're like, well, we can't do a goat now. So we switched it to donkey. And we were even going to eliminate the animal, but we fought to keep it.
Yeah.
And I think he works really well in the movie for a little bit of comedy, a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And it's the donkey's a bit more imposing because they're a little bigger than a little goat or a little dog or a cat. So it's a little bit it's more visual.
Yeah. Well, and having watched many of Eloise's movies and Kevin's, knowing that both of them can play off of that and the comedy, I'm sure is going to make it fantastic to see. So.
I hope so. I hope everybody agrees with you.
So the movie opens with Liara getting dumped by her fiance right before the trip. How did that setup come to be? I know you've kind of shared what it was and then now. And then what excited you about her personal journey?
Yeah, the setup was one of the hardest things in the movie. Funny enough, when we were going through development, it was just I told you how we originally had set it up, and then it changed. It had a lot of different incarnations, and then we wanted to just simplify it
Yeah.
because it was overcomplicating it. And even in previous incarnations, she was still friends with the guy who dumped like too many notes, as they say in Amadeus, and it was just too much. So we just wanted to simplify, simplify, simplify. And Betsy Morris, who's the writer, did a really good job there to come like just kind of streamline the beginning.
Mm.
I like regarding her journey, what we liked about her journey is that I don't know, just when something happens in your life that makes up, down, and down, up, and just throws it into an upheaval. And what do you do? Some people just kind of power through, but it's kind of interesting, like when somebody is met at those crossroads and they do something maybe a little bit more left of center and something that's outside of their character. And that I think that leads to an interesting story usually.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think
So
that's what I like. That's what drew me to that idea of like just let's shuffle all the papers and have a tornado go into her life and see what she does. You know?
got it. Yeah. So there's something timeless about rebuilding your life in a beautiful place, and we've got to see several hallmarks where they do that. What conversations did you have with the writer or the director about how to visually and emotionally capture that transformation?
Hmm. Well, obviously visually the metaphor in this one is that the house she's rebuilding is
Mm,
a metaphor for the life she's trying to rebuild. So visually we did have a lot of talks about the house, and
mm,
how do we make this house. Well, one, we have to see it in different stages of the rebuild, to
mhm.
make it go from like disheveled to pretty. And
Yeah,
it's funny because we don't film in order,
yeah,
so sometimes we're like, hey, what stage of the house are
of
we
the
in
house.
today? We're in stage like three, or they're more like towards one, or more towards like the last, so that's kind of always interesting to have to keep
Yeah.
aware of. But the house was a visual metaphor for her journey, so that was a nice little touch.
That's super cool. What makes Leo such a compelling match for Liara?
Well, I guess they're both kind of running away from things, and you have Liar kind of is running away from the life that has just been turned upside down,
Mhm.
and Leo is avoiding, I wouldn't say running away, but did run away from the life he didn't want at some point and is now hiding from it and from his dad. And I think that they kind of both, in the end, find each other in this, moment. They run towards each other while running away from the things they
Mm,
don't want.
yeah.
And I think that's what makes them a good match.
Okay. So was there anything, you've seen the movie. Is there anything that surprised you about Eloise and her character or Kevin and his character after you watched it?
Well, Eloise can turn on the waterworks so easily. I was actually very not even about both about her character and also about just her
Hmm.
individually. She just could just like that and
Hmm.
turn it off and then turn it on and turn it off and turn it on. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of impressive. I'm
That's
always
a
impressed with
skill.
anybody who can do that.
Yeah.
So that was very that was something that surprised me in a good way. And uh, Kevin was just very easy to work with and very likable. And I think that his personality off screen kind of obviously is that on screen too. I think he's, like I said, he's inviting, I think
Mm-hmm.
everybody feels that when you watch him on screen.
Got it. So would you say that Villa Amore, we've talked a little bit about some of the comedy moments. Would you say that it's a good balance of humor and romance, heart? How would you describe it?
Yeah, I think it's more romance and heart and some humor.
Okay.
But I think there's because I think last year I'm jaded maybe. Last year I was lucky enough to do a more comedic movie called The Santa Class, and I think
Yes.
that one had more humor in it than most movies, and I really enjoyed doing that one. And
Yeah.
this one doesn't have as much humor as that, but it has humor. We have a donkey, we have a broken down house that gets built back up. So I definitely think that there's humor in it, but I still think we focused more on heart and romance a little.
Got it.
I
So we
mean,
haven't,
Amore is in the title.
it's amore, right? We're letting you know there's a
Yeah,
villa
exactly.
and there's some amore.
Hmm.
We haven't talked too much about Italy, so I'm curious, like, what's the process like when you or whoever is scouting locations in a place like Italy?
I mean, it's not a whole in terms of scouting locations, it's not a whole lot different just to find the visual aesthetic that works. But
Okay.
obviously, there's different rules and different, procedures you have to follow. Like, we didn't shoot the Coliseum. It was very expensive, even just to have it in the background. They charge you a fee, a pretty big fee.
Hmm.
And so we do have a shot of the Coliseum in the very beginning before the credits or right at the beginning, and it is a stock shot because we could not, it was very, the government would charge you quite a bit. So
Yeah.
that's one little thing. I mean, we do have other very iconic landmarks. We're at the Fountain of Trevi. We're at the, oh my God, there's so many other places. I'm blanking. What do you call that place where you put your hand in the mouth of the,
Oh,
I
I'm
can't think.
blanking too, and I know exactly what it's like in every
Yeah,
Italian
yeah, yeah,
movie.
yeah. All because of Roman Holiday, I think, because of that movie.
I'll put it on the final edit of this. It'll be right there below us, okay,
All right.
guys?
I have a picture of my hand in it. So I mean, and there's a couple other places. I mean, we have the Pantheon. So we did whatever we could, and it's surprisingly sometimes some things are easier, and sometimes there's just more bureaucratic red tape in some
Mm,
parts, some aspects, and sometimes it's easier. You're like, oh my God, if I had to film the Pantheon or the equivalent of that in LA or in wherever, I'm like, it
hmm.
would just be so much harder and so much more expensive and so much more crowd control and
Hmm.
so much more to do, and it's actually easier there for some reason. You would think
Interesting.
not, but it was easier.
Well, I was going to ask about that as far as, working around tourists and things like that, but you feel like it was easier?
Well, I mean, we also shot the Fountain of Trevi at 6 a.m. when no
Mm,
one's there.
yeah.
I mean, that's easier. But, literally by like 9 people, there's a lot of people there. I think I wasn't there when we shot the Fountain of Trevi, but I do know there was one or two real proposals that happened on that day.
Yeah.
So, from just tourists. So that's yeah. But I think I don't know, it's not too crazy. Like we were able to control the crowd enough for our purposes. Sometimes it's a little hectic and
Mm-hmm.
you don't see those shots because we don't use them. Because we couldn't
Yeah,
control something that got messed up and we're not going to use it. So we went again and we go until we kind of get what we need.
got it. So, any moments that you heard, I mean, even when you were there on set that kind of made you laugh or surprised you?
Um, I'm sure there are. I have to go back and think. Let me think about it. I'll come back to that.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Well,
Is
what obviously how easily Eloise can cry and
yes.
be so believable. That was one surprise, but I'm trying to think of a couple funnier moments. I can't think of them at the moment, but I will.
If they come back, you just
Uh-huh,
go
yeah, for
for it.
sure.
Any fun facts or memorable behind the scenes moments that fans would enjoy hearing about?
I did get engaged there.
Yeah. Tell us about that. I mean, if you're going to get engaged, do it in
Yeah.
Italy, right?
I told my girlfriend at the time to come out to Italy with me when this was when I knew this movie was greenlit, and obviously I knew I was going to propose to her months before, and this kind of just fell right into
Oh, yeah.
place. And
Yeah.
and it's funny because Claire is her best friend, the director of this movie,
Okay.
and Claire is who introduced us after the movie, as luck would have it, 4.5 years ago. So it was kind of Kim perfect circle, and
It wrote its own story.
it did because it also Joanna Garcia Swisher is a producer on this movie,
Yes.
and she was supposed to be in it, but she got another season of Sweet Magnolias, so we had to
Mhm.
cast differently. And so it all kind of worked out. That's the movie I met her on. That's the movie we worked on together. That's the movie I met Claire on. Claire introduced me to my girlfriend. I've stayed with her since then. And then another opportunity. Oh my God, Italy, Claire directing a movie I'm producing with Joanna. I'm like, I think the world's
Uh-huh.
the cosmos are trying to tell me
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
So then I proposed to her. We did a weekend in Florence, and I proposed to her there.
Well, congratulations. That's
Well, thank you.
awesome.
That's a fun. I mean, I don't know if that's about the movie, but that's a fun behind the scenes that love happened on the movie
There you
behind the scenes.
go. So, and I know you can't share too much, but do you have a favorite moment in the movie that you could hint about?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what yeah, there's definitely a few moments I like in the movie. Um, though what can I actually say without giving too much away? Um, I like, yeah, I'm trying to think of what I could say. I don't want to give anything away. Um, I like some moments where our two leads, we're in, without saying too much, when they both have the green light to fall for
Mm,
each other,
got it. Yeah.
There's a very sweet moment when they're at a lake. That's a
Oh,
pretty moment, I
yeah.
think. There's there, there's a funny moment behind the scene. Here you go, a funny moment behind the scenes. Now I'll tell
Okay.
you. There's a moment when they're in this house and they're burning these letters that the house that they bought had received over 25 years. They're going through them, right? And
Yeah.
there's a reveal in that moment that I will not give away, but the ones they don't need, they're burning. And the inside of the house got so smoky. And it was so much smoke. Like I actually had to walk out of the house. I was not. It was so much smoke. And I think we dealt with it a little bit. You'll see in the movie. You'll be like, oh, I think that's the moment Alex was mentioning. It's very smoky. A little more than we wanted.
That's awesome.
That's a funny moment.
That's
In
awesome.
hindsight.
So you've mentioned as luck would have it, and then we've got this destination movie. Is there anything going into this destination movie that you're like, I've learned this experience and I want to do this a certain way or differently. I always wonder about those experiences and how it helps us get better at what we do.
Yeah, I guess this all depends. I think on this movie, I think we went back and forth about getting a translator or not.
Mm,
Um, because they knew enough English, and it's not there's a lot of people who speak English, but I definitely think we would have benefited a little bit more maybe with uh, an official translator who could,
Mm,
communicate to the crew who didn't understand maybe full American, from
hmm
our director.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think is on a case by case basis. But I think once you go to another country, that is, and it's not that didn't want to pay for this. I asked Claire, our director, many times, "Do you want a translator?" She didn't feel like she
Mm,
needed it,
hmm
but we both talked about it since, and we said, we probably should have gotten one. But we dabbled and talked about it a lot throughout the movie, and then the movie was over. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just, and we got through it. And I think there are positions that, and it's always on a movie by movie basis. Do you bring in a DP, a
Mm,
director of photography? Do you not? That's always conversations that you have. And on this one, I liked our DP, don't get me wrong, but there was some communication that could have been better. I don't blame anybody other than just,
yeah.
communication and
Yeah.
language barrier. And that would have been maybe a position I would have brought in, or you bring in a translator. That's
Got
something.
it. So, language barrier, any other challenges that you see when you're doing a destination movie like this? Because I know you do so much of your filming in Canada, right?
Yeah, we've made like 5 movies in Ireland. We've done one in Norway. We've done this one, and we do a lot in Canada. And we do the Haul Out the Holly series in Utah, but
Yeah.
that's not what you're asking. Um, yeah, I would just be I would always, when I do a foreign movie, I always put in more prep time.
Got
That's
it.
what I would say, because I do what I have noticed, whether you're in Ireland's now used to it because they've done a lot of these Hallmark movies
Yeah.
or these movies. It's just more of a short schedule. I do think a lot of places don't work at the speed we're used to working at. And it's
Mm,
not that they're slow. It's just we do sometimes 7 to 10 pages a day, and that's very high page count. And I think a lot of
mm,
places aren't used to that. So I would build in more prep time to
got it.
kind of be ready for it when we go into production. Every time I have a bit more prep because it helps us be better during production.
Because at the end of it, if you're working with Hallmark, you have 15 days, right?
I have 15 days no matter what.
No
So I
matter
just got to
what.
make sure we prepare for those 15 days a little bit better, and if it's with all new people, you're just like, okay. I'm not worried about in Canada. I know everybody I work with there. And it's not to say you need to work with people you know. There's just I know there shouldn't be any surprises unless and when you go to a foreign country, you just don't know.
Got
So try to
it.
plan for that as best you can.
Okay. So at the
Oh,
end of
that's something funny.
you're remembering,
No,
yay!
well, the
I
whole
love it.
time we we had contingencies for what if the Pope passes while we're filming.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a lot of contingencies in place for that because there was going to be street closures. There was going to be it would have been a real pain in the butt if he
Yeah.
did during filming, and he didn't. But that was a big converse because while we're prepping, we don't know what's going to happen. So we had a contingency to shoot. When would we shoot all the stuff in Rome? We should probably shoot it at the beginning. But what
Mm-hmm.
if something happens?
Yeah.
Like we're gonna have to shift that to the end because maybe things will have quieted down. Like it
Yeah.
was something we did think about as and plan for as 2 options.
Do you like that problem solving part of your role?
Yeah, that's
Or
fun.
is that, yeah, yeah.
No, that's fun. I mean, one time when we were shooting a movie in Ireland, which one was it? I think it was Christmas in Notting Hill, and we were shooting that one, and we didn't know, but Biden was coming to town. And there was like a street we could no longer use that we were supposed to shoot on, and it was because it was his like not his like emergency route if something happened and
Got
we needed
it.
to keep it clear.
Keep it
I'm
clear.
like, oh my God, well that sucks. And why didn't we know this beforehand?
Yeah.
And maybe because it was a secret because they didn't want to know his emergency route. So that was something, but we solved it. I think we ended up shooting somewhere else really fast. But yeah, that's kind of the moments where that are kind of that's another big adrenaline moment. You're like, oh my, what's going to
Yeah.
happen? You have to
Yeah.
solve it really fast. So
Yeah.
those are fun moments if they get solved. If they don't get
So
solved, they are not fun.
Yeah, really. So
Yeah.
did you have any big moments like that filming this one?
No, I wouldn't say we had any big no big problem, like huge problem moments. I mean, like I said, we were planning for what if, but
Yeah.
it didn't happen. Other than that, I think everything went fairly smoothly. We had some big days where we filmed a long time because we just
Mhm.
had big page count on a couple days and big setups, but that happens on every movie because you
Yeah.
only have 15 pages and you have to film, yeah.
So at the end of us watching Villa Amore on Saturday night, what do you hope that fans take away from watching the movie?
Oh, well, I hope they get a little feel for Italy and Rome and just little small town life in a foreign country and in Italy, and that they go along the journey with these two characters and fall in love with them as much as I did, you
Hmm.
know? And with the
Okay.
idea that the romanticized idea of buying a $1 house in a small town in a small country and, just falling in love with the place, with the person there, and the country.
What are you most proud of this movie?
Oh, of this movie, uh, is just that it actually got made because it's been in development a little longer than usual than these movies. Because, like I said, I think we sold it over 3 years ago, and it's gone through a few different regimes and executives, and at every step I thought, oh, they're gonna can it, and it
Mm.
was just
Yeah.
kind of odd. So the fact that it's almost been like the little engine that could,
Hmm.
and the fact that it got to the finish line, I'm very proud of that. And I know that's more of a generic answer, but that is the truth. I really thought this one was going
Yeah.
to not make it to the finish line, but it did. So
And it being there created a whole opportunity for you personally as well. So it was
yeah,
supposed to happen.
it was, yes, for sure. Um, yeah.
So anybody that scrolls IMDb and looks up your name is going to see that you have produced a lot of movies for Hallmark.
Yeah.
We've talked about As Luck Would Have It, Haul Out the Holly, Holiday Road. I saw was great. Loved that. Everybody cooped up in a van traveling across the
Mhm.
country. Loved that one. Looking back on the movies that you've done, what's a couple of moments that you're really proud of? And maybe even if you need to give a shout out of another movie that we need to go check out.
Yeah, I really like the Santa Class.
Okay.
I think people should watch that. That was a fun movie that just was also just an idea. Like, what if Santa had amnesia and he found this class and you have to put him through the class for him to remember? Like, it was just a silly idea that was fun. I would definitely recommend that one. I really liked Christmas at the Golden Dragon. That's a couple years back. It's an ensemble cast about a Chinese restaurant closing at
Uh-huh.
Christmas and before Christmas, and it was everybody's like neighborhood staple at Christmas time, and so it throws the town into a tizzy, and it's just kind of I like that one because that was a different way of telling a story with this Chinese restaurant as a character in the story. So that's a nice one. I don't know if it's a moment. I'm just saying some ones that I think people should.
Yeah. Yeah.
Christmas in Notting Hill is a very you could actually. I don't know if you still can, but that one had a life on Netflix as well.
Okay.
And same with the Haul Out the Hollies. They're on Netflix as well as Hallmark. And like I said, I liked As Luck Would Have It because that was during the height of the pandemic. Everything was shut down.
Yep.
There's a scene in As Luck Would Have It where we shot at the Cliffs of Moher, and it was pretty special because even our location guy said this has tens of thousands of people swarming this place every day, 7 days a week, all the time. And it was the pandemic, and Ireland was in lockdown. You needed a letter to get anywhere. And we had the entire Cliffs of Moher to ourselves. We didn't know crowd. It was just like there was no one there except
Wow.
the people there. And for as far as you could see, no one was there. And he was saying,
Wow.
"You'll never see this again." And it's funny. I've been back to Ireland a few times since then, and I personally don't really want to go back to the cliffs because I know that I experienced them in a way that I'll
Hmm.
probably never experience them
Hmm.
again.
Hmm.
But that and we captured it too on a movie. So that was and that was a pretty special moment
I
that I
traveled
won't.
to, yeah, I traveled to Yellowstone and the Tetons during COVID, and I'm like, it was nobody was there, and I'm like, I just want to capture that moment, so I completely get it.
It's a pretty magical moment, I think, when you see this kind of I'm like it's massive and it's
Yeah,
so imposing
yeah,
natural beauty and you're just there and there's no one else to kind of get in your way or of experiencing it and it was nice to have that moment. So and I we did that and there was a couple other moments like that obviously because the whole place was shut down. Like we had access to a pub that was pretty popular. Like presidents have been there, all these celebrities. It's called Johnny Fox's and on our budgets, I'd never be able to shut that place down.
yeah,
They're open 7 days a week, and we did on as
yeah,
luck would have it because they were already shut down, and they
yeah.
said, "Sure, you can film here," and we did, and it was great. Oh, and again, like still a lot of my moments are on that movie. You saw that movie when they do that Kaylee dance, that traditional Irish dance with the two leads.
Yes,
Love
yes,
that. They
yes.
practiced for 2 weeks to get that dance right. I think they pulled it off.
It
It
was
looks great.
so
And
good.
I don't know how they let us have 200 people in a room during COVID, but we did. And no one got it. It
It's
was
awesome.
great. And I love that scene too. That was one of my favorite movies. Like I just mentioned three moments in that movie that
Yeah.
I will remember. So I really
I've
like it.
I've seen it numerous times, so I get it. It was a good one. Really good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that
speaking
was
of good projects, you've got a couple of new projects coming up that Hallmark has just announced. I saw a Deadline article talking about Providence Falls, and we've got another Haul Out the Halloween coming up.
yes.
What can you tell us about both of those projects?
This is again, funny enough, it's going to tie back to as luck would have it for Providence Falls. So Joanna Garcia Swisher was reading a trilogy of books in the world of Providence Falls by Jude Deveraux
Yeah.
while she was filming in Ireland on As Luck Would Have It. She was reading these books. Cut to years later, she sets up the project at Hallmark. She optioned the rights, sets up the project, asks me, her and her business partner, Kate Gordon, asked me to produce it with them. And that's how we partnered on it. And then we started the process. We looked for writers together. We settled on a great writer in Teresa Kale, who comes from the world of TV series. And I've worked with her a few times before. And it was unique because Hallmark doesn't usually do like a limited series kind of. These
Right.
are it's not three, it's not 1, 2, 3 that is like the Wedding Veil where
Right.
it's each movie is someone else's story. This is a story told in three parts.
Oh, got it.
So it's
Okay.
kind of a total. I don't think you wouldn't enjoy three if you haven't watched one and two. Like you'd be
Okay.
a little lost.
Okay.
So the nice thing about this, that's what makes it a little unique, a little different. My partner and I, Michael Goldstein, we like trying to tell stories that are different and unique, even within the world of Hallmark. And we thought this one did the trick. And this was a really fun story that involves angels and time travel and reincarnation and love over the centuries. It's just like, like it's all the big things that you would hope. And it was a fun story to do. And we shot in Ireland for a week. And then the rest was shot in Vancouver.
And that one is coming out in August, is that right?
I believe August, yes.
Okay. And then Haul Out the Halloween. We
And
just got
then on
that announcement.
yes, I actually watched the first director's cut today of that one and I'm gonna have to do my notes on that later tonight, probably 'cause after the baseball game. Uh, that one was fun. It was after 2 years of Christmas on Evergreen Lane. That's the lane that they all live on.
Mhm.
We decided to kind of change it up because we said, hey, they do other holidays, and so turn into Halloween. And that's actually funny enough. That was an idea my business partner came up with originally. I'll tell you a funny story about uh, Hall at the Halloween. So it was originally called Heart of Halloween when we sold it, and it was based on an outline that my business partner had worked on and written. And then it got shelved, it got canned because they didn't want to do Halloween. And then we revived it by saying, "Hey, but what if we made it Christmas?" That was my business partner Michael said that to an exec there, and they said, "That's great, let's do it." And then it was called, eventually, it was called Haul Out the Holly One, and we switched it to Christmas. And it's so weird. So third installment, it goes back to Halloween.
There you go.
There's a funny
Another
behind the scenes story on that one.
another full circle moment there.
Yes.
Okay.
But that one comes out, I believe, probably in October, if I had to guess, just because it's Halloween. And that one's going through the post and editing process now with VFX and music. And right now, the director just turned in his director's cut. And now the producers, myself and Michael, will watch it and give our notes and get another cut out. And that's the cut we'll turn into the network. Then they do their notes. And then we go through, once that's locked, we go through the music process, the VFX, the sound, and all that stuff. So we are finishing that one now.
That's awesome. Well, excited to see both of those projects and hear more about them later on. So, you want to play a quick game before we go?
I love games.
Okay, so these are going to
I'm good
be
at it.
Italian style. So, if
Okay.
a little getting to know you. So, if you could only eat one Italian dish for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Pasta arrabbiata.
What's that?
It's just like a spicy red sauce pasta.
Okay, keep it
I love
simple,
it.
but it's got a kick.
Yeah, exactly. I can eat that all the time.
I like it. So let's say you had a free afternoon on the Villa Amore set. Where in Italy would you go to explore?
If I had just an afternoon,
Yeah.
where would I go? I'd go to Florence. It's only an hour and a half away.
Okay.
And or did you want somewhere on the set?
No, you get to
Oh,
decide. This is your trip.
oh, I'd go to Florence. I think that's like one of the most beautiful cities in the world, not just Italy. So I'd definitely
Okay.
go to Florence. And it's
And I've
also
never been to Italy. So if I go to Italy, I've got to go to Florence, right?
you have to, yeah.
Okay. All right. Are you more of a slow cappuccino at the cafe type or give me a shot of espresso and let's get going type?
I'm a little bit of both. I'm more of the second. Give me a shot of espresso and let's go. Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
definitely. But I can do the other one too, but I think on average I'll do the espresso and go.
I like a good espresso. What is more your speed, a Vespa ride through Rome or a gondola ride in Venice?
Uh, Vespa gondolas are slow.
Get your espresso
Yeah,
on the
exactly.
Vespa.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything from the set or location that you wish you could have brought home?
From the set or the location that I wish. Yeah, all the food.
Yeah.
I That's what my favorite thing about going to. I was born in France. My grandmother
Okay.
is Italian, but every time I go back to France or I go to Italy, yeah, the food. I'm always just you could just and it's all and it just has a better quality to it. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
food. I'd always if you asked me that same question in France, if I took my family out of it, I'd say the same thing. I'd bring the food back.
Hmm. I had a friend from France stay with me last year, and I got a lot of talks about our food
Oh, it's not
compared
good.
to the French.
Well,
She's,
I know a lot of people who are gluten free and they can go to Europe and eat all the bread they want.
yeah,
Just crazy.
yes. Yeah, I have friends who literally order their flour from Europe just so they can have flour because it's going to be better for them. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Crazy.
Um, if your time in Italy were a postcard, and I kind of maybe I already know this answer, what would the picture be?
Well, now on this last trip with me on my knees proposing
I
to
knew it.
my girlfriend on this one. I'll send you the picture if you want.
That is awesome. That's so cool. I was hoping I was going to guess that one correctly, so that's
You
great.
did.
Good answer.
Yeah. I hope she watches this now.
We'll send her a message and tell her
Yeah,
to cut to the very end, right?
exactly.
That is great. Well, it has been such a great time chatting with you. I'm so excited for Villa Amore that comes out this Saturday night on Hallmark Channel. It's at 8, 7 Central, and then we get to watch it again the next day on Hallmark Plus. Thanks for sharing all of your insight. And I love chatting with you about all your other projects and the projects coming up. So thanks for being here.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, and I hope everybody tunes in and likes the movie.
Yeah. Where can everybody follow you if they want to keep up with your projects?
You can just my Instagram. It's a personal and business. I just do both, but mostly business, and it's just my name at Alexander Coscas. That's it.
Okay, great. Well, everybody that's watching, if you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to share it with somebody else. Hit that like and subscribe button. We're always trying to bring you great content, including the Passport to Love series this month on Hallmark. And hope that you'll come back and talk about your other projects that we talked about coming up. So
I'd
that'd
be
be
happy.
great.
I would be happy to.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.